All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our July virtual tasting featuring Dan Schaaf from Deux Punx. We are excited to have him here to talk about all 5 of the wines that he has presented us with for this month in our special bundle. Before we begin, of course, y'all know the ground rules. You all are well experienced in this. We're going to mute everybody in advance. And if you have any comments, questions, throw them into the chat and we will ask Dan over the course of our conversation here tonight. And of course, we always love to start out by asking Dan what the most memorable bottle of wine that he ever tasted or opened was. So Dan, what is the most memorable bottle of wine that you have ever opened?
Am I allowed to give 3?
Absolutely.
Okay, so probably in chronological order, when my mom graduated from college, I remember my dad buying a bottle of Krug and having that. And I think I was maybe freshman in high school or so. We always had wine at the table, California wine and stuff, but I just remember it tasting so much different than all the other wines that my parents drank. So that
really too shabby when you're tasting Krug.
Yeah. Let's see. Then when I graduated from college, my parents took me out for a nice meal, and we had what do we have? Perrier-Jouet with nice. with the floral glasses and all that.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah. And then the last one was Aaron, who I started Deux Punx with, and I were at so we had a mutual friend. This gets in probably into a later question, but we had a mutual friend who hated talking about wine with us. And Aaron and I didn't know each other. So he set up basically on a blind date so that he would never have to talk about wine again. And so we went to a blind tasting of Syrah, and we made so much fun of a couple of the wines. So it was like a horrible Australian Syrahs. But I just remember it just like making fun. So those are totally memorable. And that's kind of how the winery started, was from that horrible bottle of wine. So
I absolutely love that when you think of one of your memorable wines, it's actually a bad wine experience, a fun experience, but a bad wine.
We laughed so hard.
Because wine is all about context.
It is. So those are the 3.
That is true. Teresa, my girlfriend Teresa, and I, we have a memorable wine that we don't remember who the producer was. But we were at a Chateauneuf de Pape and Côte de Rhône tasting, and she had had a few glasses at that point, and I was spitting. So she has a really good nose, and I have a better palate. So she took a sniff of this wine and said, "Oh God, it smells like dirt." And I couldn't hear her, but not a second later, I sniffed it and go, "Ooh, earthy." And she always remembers that to this day, even though we have no idea which producer it was for that particular Côte de Rhône. But yeah, so that's interesting. So was it always a goal of yours to be a winemaker? Given that you had wine, how did you kind of make the jump into this, and what were you doing before you launched a label?
Yeah, so I was probably doing nothing besides working, just regular work. So I would say,
what was the regular work?
So I'm a civil engineer by training, and I practice in the area of water resources. So creeks and rivers and pipes and pumps and all that stuff. And I still do that. I still own an engineering firm. So wow. I'm a busy person. There's like 3 other things I do actively too. So
that's because you're in the wine industry. Everybody in the wine industry has their main job, their hustle, and their side hustle.
And you specialize in water resources, which is obviously a real tie-in with wine.
Absolutely. And land use and all those things. And I've actually done quite a bit of work down in the Paso area. So I did the city of Paso Robles' storm drain master plan.
Oh, cool.
I'm working on a project in Atascadero right now. So
that's where we just bought a house in Atascadero.
Yeah, I'm doing a project on Atascadero Creek for the city of Atascadero, but I don't like to talk about that stuff. So
We live
because it's past 5.
a very, very long stone's throw from a Atascadero Creek, but
Oh,
we
yeah.
cross over it on the way there. So we'll have to talk more about that.
Yeah, we
but
will. We will.
That's cool. So how did do you find your engineering background kind of seeps its way into your winemaking?
1000%. Yeah. I just, so I'd say idle hands are the devil's workshop, meaning that, I think we didn't have kids yet. And so I just was always fascinated by, okay, how do you actually make wine? And I don't buy 1,000 pounds of grapes and figure it out is what I did. That's what Aaron and I did. So that's sort of how it all started.
And you clearly grew up drinking wine. I mean, or around.
Mhm. Yeah.
That, but also, I mean, if Krug was coming out when you were in high school, you had some good stuff that you were drinking.
Well, no, that was like because my mom graduated from college, but no, it was like let's see, and it's like just your typical California. I mean, it was from Gallo jug wine,
Kendall Jackson, things like that.
No, my parents were huge lore people.
Ah.
So a lot of, in fact, from when lore was in San Jose before it moved down, right?
Yep.
So my dad's office was right next to the lore winery in San Jose. So yeah. So a lot of lore and, those type of things. So it's just always around. And I always wanted to know how do you make wine? So I figured it out. Maybe we'll find out after these 5 bottles.
Interesting. And so, I mean, when you and Aaron got started with this, and obviously, you and Aaron met at this, were set up on this blind date. I love that story. And do you remember which particular bad Australian Shiraz it was? Or?
I don't even know if we stuck around for the unveiling. It was just, there was probably like a Gigondas or something. There was definitely something that was Central Coast. The screw cap bottle back then was obviously the Australian one.
Yeah.
So they couldn't hide that,
Right.
which is funny. It maybe 1 or 2 other things, but yeah. So it was, I never found out the producer of any of them. I just giggled.
Nice. And I know Aaron's no longer with Deux Punx, but what was Aaron's background and what was
so fascinating. Yeah. So his background working was audio. Like he worked for the company that makes all the live sound consoles. So he's like an audio engineer, but more on the technology side of that. And he moved to Seattle like 6 years ago. That's where he's from. So he moved home, be closer to family. And so that's kind of good time for him to just segue it out of it. Still talk to him all the time. We're super, super good friends. So, all that.
How did Kane get involved?
What's that, Kane? Yeah. So Kane was our California distributor. So he sold the wines for Aaron and I, and then he came to me and said, "Oh, I want to start my own winery. I want to have this winery called De La Soif." And I said, "Why don't you just buy Aaron out and make everyone's life easier?" And so that's how it all played out. It was actually pretty quick and simple, and it worked out really well. And yeah, it was good. And then so Aaron and I, our common background is that besides liking wine, we also grew up both like kind of punk rock kids. He was always in bands. He's a drummer. He's in a lot of like LA and San Francisco hardcore bands. And then I grew up as like a skateboarder, as you could tell there. That, and I still do a little bit, and he still does a little bit, and just hurts more.
That's true. The older you get, the better we were.
Yep, exactly. So
nice. So what was that catalyst moment for you and Aaron when you decided, let's not just enjoy wine, let's go buy the 5,000 pounds of grapes and, buy half a ton and, or 2.5 tons and make our own wine.
I don't know. It was probably our wives telling us not to. So that was just feed the fire a little bit. Yeah, we just, a lot of things when you get 2 guys together, you kind of push each other, and that's kind of what happened.
True. Lots of trouble happens at that point.
Yeah. So we trekked all the way up to Humboldt County, got 1,000 pounds of Pinot Noir, and drove back to San Francisco where I live and figured out how to make Pinot Noir.
Wow.
You say 1,000 tons or 1,000 pounds?
Pounds, so a half ton.
Nice.
So one barrel.
Yeah.
25 cases.
So why Humboldt County? I mean, you guys were in
so
San Jose Bay Area at the time.
This gets funnier. So this is 2006 or 6, and Anderson Valley Pinot Noir starts becoming all the rage, but still pretty affordable grape wise. So we found a producer to sell a small lot to us, and he lost a lot of fruit, either fire or frost. I think it was frost. And so he just kind of gave us, small producers get the heave ho. This is a common thing. But when we were up there, we were at a tasting room of now, I don't think it exists anymore, but Lazy Creek. It's one of my favorite producers was. But people next door are like, you should check out Humboldt, all this stuff. We're just like, go away. And so when we lost the fruit, we're like, hey, what was that guy's name up in Humboldt? And we tracked him down, and we ended up finding, and it's insane fruit up there. It's like a lot of it's still own rooted.
Oh, wow.
So really great stuff up there, but just not a lot of it. And it's very, very different up there. It's like going to Twin Peaks.
Yes. But they have damn good pie in Twin Peaks.
Yes, though they just have better other things up there in Humboldt.
Humboldt has really good pots, so
Yeah, absolutely. So so that's how we ended up in Humboldt, and we stayed up there for quite a while. We bought fruit as long as we could. So
now, because Humboldt County, not a place that you normally think of as one of the, obviously not one of the bigger grape growing regions in California. So obviously they own rooted. Is there any other advantages? I mean, is it just price?
Yeah. And then uniqueness. So I think that's Aaron and I coming from this sort of punk rock background. We're kind of strive to be different. We always say be different like everybody else.
Exactly.
So,
it's like the old Yogi Berra, like, that place is so crowded, nobody goes there anymore. So.
That's right. That's exactly. So it was a little bit of that. We try to be obscure, but not too crazy, because we still love Pinot, and that's what we wanted to make. So started there.
Yeah. And speaking of starting, we are starting off tonight with the Petnat Chenin Blanc. If you have not, if you want to follow along with us and open up, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but I'm interested about why you guys decided on Pinot, because Pinot, a very, very difficult grape to work with, very thin-skinned, a little more expensive than, your Cabs, your Syrahs, some of the other grapes you can get there.
And
was it simply
super funky with?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. We didn't know anything better, right? We knew Pinot.
You just didn't want Australian Shiraz. That's the
right.
One thing you knew.
We didn't. We literally did not know, but we knew we liked Pinot. So let's go track it down. And Pinot was still somewhat affordable in 2006. So, I think we paid like $2,000 a ton. That stuff's all north of like 6,000-7,000 now for the good stuff. So so it was still affordable. We liked it. I mean, that was what I was drinking at the time. I was drinking a lot of Burgundy, which was somewhat affordable then, and California, and then New Zealand, another Pinot. So that's what we were into at that point. And then changes. It's great. And Aaron and I talked about this yesterday. Is we got to find Pinot that we can, because we want to do something we can talk about later, but we have this funky idea of what to do with Pinot to make it really fun, but still serious wine that can, the problem is when you buy expensive grapes, you have to charge more for the bottle. And then when people pay more for a bottle, they expect a little bit more, be taken a little more serious. So, they're not going to buy $50 carbonic wines, but
if you're the right person and you've got the right label, absolutely.
But if it says Deux Punx, no.
That's true. Well, especially if it's like, here's our 150 and everything else is 22 to 27 across the board.
Right,
so.
right, exactly. So
don't forget,
I love Pinot.
Those single cru Beaujolais have a little carbonic in them. So.
They do.
True.
Yeah. One of the wines today has carbonic in it.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. So when you're up in Humboldt, you're buying the grapes, you're renting a flatbread and trucking it down, or was it driven to you? And then where did you make the wine? What was the game plan at this point? Was there a game plan?
This gets funnier because we didn't think about any of those things. We bought a bunch of harvest bins from one of the champagne producers in Napa, or one of the sparkling wine producers, because we didn't have any macro bins that wine is normally picked into, right? It's dumped into these large bins. We didn't have any of those. And so what we thought is, well, if we buy like 50 picking bins, that would be a
50,
half a ton.
50
and
different lots. Perfect. Easy peasy.
The pickers were irate.
Yeah.
I don't know. We never been to a harvest before. So yeah, they, my Spanish isn't good, but I was called bad things. I can tell you.
Lots of puta
Yeah,
being
yes,
thrown at you, I
yes.
imagine.
And I'm
Yeah.
probably some directed towards my mom too, but
Some chingates, all
yeah.
sorts of things going
Right.
on. Yeah.
Anyway, but we survived. We just literally put it in the back of like my dad's SUV and a U-Haul trailer, got it to San Francisco, and just like crushed it into a God, what do we even use? We did have a bin at my house, and we just let it ferment. Oh no, we fermented it in open topped barrels. We did it like put barrels on their sides and then cut the head out and put them in those. So yeah, it was chaos, and the fruit fly situation was horrific and was banned from ever making wine in the house again by my wife.
Because you made it in the house as opposed
In the
to
garage. Yeah, it's in the garage. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we live above the garage, and there's like those fly strips. There was like hundreds of them around
They
the
were
house.
just black. They weren't yellow. They were just
yeah.
black at that point.
Yeah. So there's a theme you'll see, but we learn a lot every year by doing things maybe not the best way.
Yeah.
But you learn.
Trial and error.
But the wine was great. The wine was insane. It was so good.
You obviously have your approach is very minimal, and I know we'll talk about this as we go in, but at what point did that approach start? Because obviously when you're first learning, at what point did you decide, okay, we're going to do minimal sulfur and native ferments and not hands off kind of as much as
Focus
possible?
on organic vineyards and whatnot.
Kind of from day one. I mean, we the first wine turned out without any real equipment. So why buy? I mean, wine equipment is insanely expensive.
Yes.
So we realized we could make wine without the stuff, and then we learned about natural wine. And I'm like, well, that's what we're doing pretty much. So let's just change a couple things, and so it's what we know. If when I go to a fancy winery, I'm like, yeah, there's some irony in here that like my son just got into Cal Poly enology program.
Oh, nice.
And so he's going to end up working for Kendall Jackson, I'm sure. Just to spite the old man.
Justin or Vina Robles or somebody like that.
So anyway, yeah.
Well, at least Kendall Jackson at least is a sustainably minded family-owned business. You threw a few in there that are not quite as.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but
no,
yeah,
it'll be like Treasury Wine Estates down here in Paso. Just
who knows?
Let's throw everything into a bin, and whatever happens.
Well, he still has illusions of pitching for Cal Poly. So there you go. He's a baseball player. Anyway, so yeah. So we just learned with no equipment, and natural wine really lent itself. They've been making wine for millennia without all this stuff. So
yeah,
why spend money? We are admittedly cheap. Frugal.
But that's the punk rock aesthetic. I mean,
it is
the whole
do it
concept.
yourself. It is, book your own winery, do it yourself, like save. And it doesn't always work. And that's we do all our own TTB registrations, and we get yelled at by government employees all the time.
That's why it's better to beg forgiveness than ask permission. So
Yep.
Did you guys have a mentor or another winemaker that you could call up and ask questions to, or how did you guys, I mean, even just knowing to ferment in the barrel that you needed to get a barrel, like, did you,
Yeah,
had you talked to somebody?
Yeah, so just we didn't have like a true mentor, but we had some people that we had met along the way and asked. So one was the winemaker at Woodenhead there in Forestville, which those I still love those wines. The Nikolai, I think his name is. Yeah, so Woodenhead wines. He still makes killer Pinot. He's not a natural winemaker either, but he just kind of more on the minimalist side. But he kind of just gave us some advice, and and not till we moved to our actual winery like 2 years later did we actually like have someone who we could actually ask real questions to.
And yeah, at what point, you guys make this first Pinot, you're doing 25, 30 cases of it, a single barrel. I imagine, sold it off to friends and family, or did you,
Yeah. So this is important. Your friends don't buy wine. Just remember, someone told me that, I didn't listen, but then I learned. So then I tell other people, your friends don't buy wine. That's how it works. Your friends don't buy wine. They like it for free.
Right.
They don't buy wine.
Yeah. So, they love to come over and have you open up bottles. And
but a lot of neighbors. I started selling it to neighbors.
Nice.
Chris, take note. Friends don't buy wine.
Oh no, believe me, Allison. I know you're not buying any, so I am fine with that.
That's right.
So it's okay.
Oh, we're not friends. Perfect. Excellent.
Right.
So at what point did you and Aaron decide, hey, we've got something here. Let's actually start a business and move into our own facility where we can make wine and, kind of start ramping things up?
Yeah. So we were at this like a dinner party or some party in my neighborhood, and a neighbor's friend was trying the wine and said, "This is great. You should make more." And we're like, "Yeah, we don't know where to make it." Like, because we didn't want to do custom crush. We didn't want to go all in with our own winery. Right. And she said, "Oh, there's this guy in Napa. He's like super cool. He'll probably let you do whatever you want." And we met him, and he said, "Yeah, you can have that corner. Don't hurt yourself. If your hand falls in, I'm throwing your whole body. Like, I'm not dealing with any injuries. There's just going to be deaths only." So
we have no insurance. So you're
well,
damned
yeah,
if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. So and we're like, he had the bare minimum of equipment and maybe some stuff a little bit better. And that's where that was 2008. That's where it really kicked into gear, and we actually made real commercial wine.
Are you willing to share who it was?
Yeah. So his name's Eric Gordon, and his winery back then was called Punk Dog, and like no relationship. And he runs something called Brute Bottling now. So he makes sparkling wine for almost all the players now. Mm-hmm. And he's really kicked it into gear. He's doing excellent. So and nicest guy. So he put up with us for about 8 or 9 years, maybe call it 10 years before he moved on to Brute. But we're in the same building. He moved, we didn't.
Nice. Yeah, I think they're one of the only mobile sparkling bottling trucks in California.
And they go up to Washington. They go everywhere. They have 2 full sparkling mobile bottling lines.
Yeah, I think I actually might have traded emails with him. So.
Yeah, they have so much. I mean, they probably have like $3 or $4 million in equipment. Yeah. This stuff is crazy.
So I'm curious, since you have a different partner now, does he share the punk rock ethos?
It's sort of a bad subject. He does a little bit,
is he a pop guy? Is he like Michael Jackson, Britney Spears?
He's like Phish, and which is like oil and water. So when Aaron and I ran the winery, there's a rule of there's only 3 topics you're allowed to talk about, and it was baseball. We both love baseball, music, and wine. So with Kane, luckily Kane likes baseball. So it's just wine and music. Yeah, we don't talk about music.
Are you all Giants fans up there?
Big Giants fans, yeah. Like lifelong. Yeah, I grew up here, so.
So all of you Dodger fans, whatever you do not go put on your blue hats and jerseys tonight.
You know what? right here, I'm going to pull it out, but I have an autographed Tommy Lasorda. It says to Dan, God bless you, Tommy Lasorda.
Nice.
I have a signed baseball from Steve Garvey.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So
I didn't get it when I was 9 and wanted it. I got it when I was like 30 and told him he
no, I'm not a hater. I just, only when I'm at Dodger Giants games, but Dodgers are great.
It's also a good thing I didn't wear my 2002 world champion Angels shirt when we beat the Giants in the World Series. So yes, for those Angels fans out there,
and
you know who you are.
David Eckstein, the X Factor, Rally Monkey.
Yep. Scott Spezio and David Eckstein, Game 6. I was there for 6 and 7. I will never forget those games. But,
So.
And you guys should know that the reason that Kane isn't here is that he is at a Deadhead show.
Oh, he's pre-gaming for the Deadhead show.
It is the final Dead and Company. If you're familiar with the sort of Bob Weir, I think it was Bob Weir who led that. This is apparently their final shows ever, until Live Nation throws backs the Brinks truck up to them again and says, "Oh, let's do one more round." And
they're going to do a residency in Vegas, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, or Madison Square Garden or AT&T Park or somewhere or whatever the new was it Oracle Arena there in the Bay Area. Yeah,
exactly. That train high on cocaine. They'll be doing it in Vegas.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So let's since you love bubbles, at what point did you guys decide that you were going to make bubbles, and how did this Chenin Blanc Petnat come to be, and why did you decide on Petnat instead of more Méthode Traditionnelle or some of the other styles, especially since you knew Eric and the bottling truck was right there?
Yeah, so we did the first Petnat about 5 years ago, maybe 6, and had a bottle of some Loire Petnat at here in San Francisco. There was like probably one of the first natural wine bars in California. It's called Terroir. It's not around anymore, but I think it opened about 2005, and had a Loire Petnat, and figured out how they make it, and was like, wow, you can make sparkling wine without any equipment, like zero. It's and I'm like, well, that's what we do. We make wine without equipment, so let's. And, the story is amazing about, what pretty much happened with how they discovered Petnat. So we kind of just figured out how to do it. And Eric helped us, figure out how to do it all. We asked a couple of other people who were, Donkey and Goat was starting to make a little bit of Petnat. So I asked them, basically what sugar level do you bottle at? Where's the sweet spot? And then we just tried it. It made like 20 cases, and then now we're making like 400 cases.
Wow.
But we're still doing it by hand, which is a sore subject. So I've run out of friends.
Sore in your hands, but
oh god, so horrible. Yeah, so that's my weekend actually coming up. It's got to do some more. So but yeah, we love sparkling wine, and there's something fun about it. It sells like hotcakes. Yeah, Kane said he's just sold 46 cases in 30 days. So
wow,
which is crazy. Like so, and for us, it's pretty affordable. I think it retails in the 27-ish range. So for sparkling wine, that's pretty doable.
So what you're saying is that the market for sparkling wine is super hot right now.
It's crazy.
Stacy and Matt and Rigo and Mike and Jeannie, just want to reiterate that.
It is crazy. So Kane is an importer. That's his main business. Merchants of Thirst is his main, and he's a big champagne importer. He does a lot of grower champagne, and most of it's sold before it lands here in the States. So yeah, it's people love the bubbles. I do.
So walk us through, for those who aren't familiar with the Petnat style, kind of walk us through how you produce this wine, how it differs. Obviously, this one doesn't do a secondary fermentation in the bottle. It sounds like you're making that wine, leaving the RS, pretty much putting it straight in the bottle with the crown cap on. Are you inoculating it, or is it just the natural yeasts on it?
It is. So it's basically native yeast fermenting wine, primary fermentation. And then when it gets to about what we say like 1 brick, so that's about that's like 10 grams per liter. Mm-hmm. Sugar, we just fill it into bottles, cap it, and let it sit for maybe about 4 to 5 months. It continues to ferment, and the byproduct is CO2, but the CO2 has nowhere to go. So it is encapsulated into the liquid, dissolved into the liquid, and that's what creates the sparkles. And it's much different than champagne. The bubbles, so they tend to be a little larger, more soda-like bubbles. It's also because the wine isn't fined or filtered, so there's a lot of kind of residual sediment in there, which gives it more like mouthfeel to me.
Yeah, to see that with the cloudiness of the wine right there. So
the bubbles are not as intense.
Right.
Yeah, and they tend to fade off a bit faster than
the PSI or the whatever it is less.
It is. It's not champagne level sparkling, and it's a little bit of it's a blend of you don't know if it's gonna go bone dry or if it's gonna, because sometimes the pressure can affect the fermentation.
Right.
So there's a lot of factors. So sometimes we did one year with Albarino or something like that, and it stayed very dry. I mean, it was very sweet, but it was delicious. But so it's kind of a crapshoot, which is to us really fun, and to a lot of people don't like that. So that's why the people do method champenois or forced carbonation, is exactly what you're going to get. So what a lot of people are doing now is they're putting wine in bright tanks, like pressurized tanks, and injecting CO2.
Yeah.
And then you go, exactly how much pressure you're getting and how much sugar you're getting. We're kind of the other end of the spectrum. We're doing we don't know what we're getting. Every year is different, and we like that.
And just to clarify, the idea of the tanks and adding the carbonation, that's the Prosecco method.
Right.
There's another. There's also
the forced carbonation that he was talking about is different, which is that you're injecting the CO2.
Yeah, there's that, style. And then there's one where you're basically making Petnat, but in a big tank, where the primary fermentation. And there are some people that are adding like a secondary, but it's actually fermenting wine, not sugar.
Right.
So there's lots of ways to do this.
Yeah, there's a cool way. Italy's coming back. A lot of Prosecco producers are doing. They do ancestral method and they do rural method, which is the ancestral method is the Petnat method. It's the same thing. So you're going to get a little cloudy, everything that Dan was saying. But then they have this one other method where the difference is that it finishes fermentation, and they add must to the dry, and it re-ferments like a Petnat would do, except that it's already finished. And so it's just another expression. So every time you hear someone describe ancestrale, rurale, metodo classico, Charmat method, they're all different ways to make sparkling wine that come up with a slightly different result.
Right. And that's what Field Recordings does, that method.
Yeah.
But they make a lot more than we do. So,
Right. And we were talking before we started about how, you generally keep your winery cool. So does the fermentation happen at that 50, 55 degree temperature? Is this something you have to warm up to allow that fermentation to happen? Have you had stuck fermentations before? It sounds like you did with that Albarino.
Yeah, but it's trapped in a bottle. So it played out fine. Knock on wherever wood is. Every year it goes pretty close to dry. We have not really had anything stuck. But we open bottles along the way. And if it's exactly what you said, if it was stalling, we'd probably leave it outside for a day and let it warm up. And
Madeira style. Throw it out in the heat of, or I guess.
But it gets pretty warm. We're close to the bay in Napa, so we're not up by Calistoga where it's really hot. We're kind of in a cooler climate of Napa.
Yeah, you guys are kind of really southern, actually south of downtown Napa.
Yes, we are.
American, North American Canyon,
we just tell people we're by the DMV, and anyone in Napa knows where we are.
You're near the airport or the DMV.
We are near the airport. Yeah.
Perfect. Interesting. So you mentioned you had worked with Albarino. What other varietals have you worked with, and why for 2022 did you settle on Chenin? Is this something you're going to be working with going forward, or are you always going to experiment with different grapes for this one?
Kane loves Chenin. So we make another Petnat out of Muscat, and that's what I've made for years. And then he's a Chenin guy, so he wanted to do Petnat Chenin, and that's under the De La Soif label,
which means from the Soif.
Yeah. So there you go.
Are you plug 1, plug 2, or plug 3? Sorry, De La Soul reference.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So it is a play on De La Soul. But anyway, so it was that's sort of his project, but he wanted to do a little more, I don't know, not refined isn't a good word, but just different a little bit in style. So Chenin really plays into his wheelhouse. And I love Chenin too. It's got great acidity and I love those, profiles. So
nice. Are you, obviously this is, the most recent vintage, you've sold out of this. Are you planning on another Petnat for next year? Will it be Chenin, or is it going to kind of always be a revolving, you take what you can get kind of thing?
I think it'll be these two. Usually when this wine gets disgorged. So that's one thing, that one part of the process, and it's a horrible couple of days. And we always say we're never making Petnat again, and then it sells, and then we make Petnat again. So it's not scalable though, the way we're doing it. We're 400 cases total is like not even something we probably should be doing. We could have Eric next door. He has a disgorging machine, but it doesn't play nice with Petnat. So we kind of considered, the tank method of like letting it doing fermentation in tank, but not letting it go dry and adding another must, but actually just when it gets down to like one brick is putting into a bright tank and letting it build pressure. And that way you could rack it off and not have the gross lees in the bottle.
Yeah. But you are now, I guess right now you're in that, it's like, when you leave Vegas, everybody's like, I'm never going back to Las Vegas again. And then after a year, it's my stuffed crust pizza theory, where stuffed crust pizza is one of those things you're like, oh, stuffed crust pizza, it sounds like a great idea. And then you get it, you're like, oh God, no, this is terrible. And you're never ordering again. And then like a year later, you see a commercial like, oh, stuffed crust pizza, that sounds like a good idea.
Can I say I've never had stuffed crust pizza?
That's okay. But you get the theory.
I do.
We can call it the Petnat theory. So,
yeah.
So, I mean, can we say you'll be producing one in 2023?
Always. Yeah. It's, we like to complain. You'll get that theme that I'm a whiner. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But.
So I noticed that this wine and then the Skin Contact, the orange wine that we'll have a little bit later, are both under the De La Soif labels, sub-labels, subgenre, whatever you want to label it. How do you and Kane decide which wines will be under De La Soif? Obviously, it's all Deux Punx, but this is kind of a secondary separation. How do you guys sort of decide that?
I kind of let Kane run with the De La Soif, so, he's a little new to winemaking. So, he came out and it's like, we're going to make Gamay and Trousseau Gris. And I'm like, well,
Man after my heart. And Allison's too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
is he single? It's Allison's single. We can hook him up.
Yeah. He's married.
Sorry, Allison.
So he, but like now he knows the economics and all this stuff. He knows we don't make any of those. So
it's like, we can't afford Trousseau Gris.
Yeah. We can't actually. So anyway, but yeah, just, there's wines like he really digs and he wants to make them. So, but we try to team up as much as like, hey, I'm getting some Chardonnay, or it's all one thing. It's just, he kind of, those are his babies. The Deux Punx ones are my babies.
Do you guys have contracts with different vineyards? Are you kind of starting fresh every year? Is it just relationship driven?
It's relationship driven. It's a lot of handshake stuff, which works and sometimes does not work. Some people's handshake is worthless, but we have no long-term contracts on vineyards. We own no vineyard land. We don't lease any vineyard land. We just really rely on good growers. They almost all are family run farms, not run usually by large vineyard management companies. Right. And just kind of like the people that run them kind of get it comes out, you just get a good vibe from people. And that's sort of how but again, sometimes it's been horrible, and but it's a handshake for us. We like the handshake deals. At the end of the day, we do sign something, say we're going to pay you, $2,200 a ton.
Right. Yeah.
But,
you have to have some sort of an agreement in place.
Right. Sure. Just some basic stuff. So there's,
in case everything goes up, goes tits up.
There is a basic kind of wine purchasing contract, and most people use it, and we have no problem signing that. And but yeah, we mix the wines up a little bit every year. I mean, we want to try a new thing every year, either a varietal, a technique, something. So we kind of mix it up there's something new every year.
That was going to be my next question, is how do you guys decide on the wines? Do you have certain wines that are, especially with Kane doing the distribution, and you guys having, some off-premise, on-premise places that, probably always want the same wine. So do you have certain wines that you're saying, okay, these are our staples, we're going to make these year in and year out, and then there's a few things we'll experiment with? How do you guys decide on that?
Yeah, it's what's selling currently. So we did, one year I just said, I wanted to make an orange wine. I was into orange wine at the time. So we made orange Chardonnay. Seemed weird. It sells so crazy. It's like the number one selling wine we make. And when I started in 2005, Aaron and I had this agreement that we would never make Zinfandel or Chardonnay.
Whoops.
Yep. So that we're adamant, no Chardonnay, no Zinfandel. And those are some of our favorite wines. And
haven't you learned that never say never in the wine industry?
Oh, I know. But it's fun. So anyway, yeah. So it's kind of, then we hear about things, and someone's got, Assyrtiko or, whatever they have.
Yes.
Muscofalero.
Yeah.
Muscofalero.
Nice. Yeah, that's right. I saw that on your
Yeah.
list. I want to talk about that. Before we jump off of the sparkling, we always like to ask about food pairings. What food pairings do you think are ideal with this Petnat? What would you put it with?
So I would probably go with pierogi. I love pierogi.
Oh, interesting.
So I go pierogi, just a traditional Ruski, the farmer's cheese and potato.
Yep.
So
Classic.
both Kane and I are Polish, so that's one of the other. And we thought about renaming the parent company Pierogi Party at one point. So
nice. Well, I'm very excited about the kielbasa pairing with the Old Vine Zinfandel.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it proper to say it's like the Deux Punx de la Soif wine, or is de la Soif a separate label?
No, it's all the same.
Okay.
And Allison, if you hung out more with Stephen McConnell, you'd know it's Soif.
Soif. Well, I've hung out with him enough to know I don't need to hang out with him more.
Yeah, as soon as we launched it, he sent us email. He's like, "You're going to get sued."
Well, yeah, because he got a cease and desist from that place in Northern California.
Yeah. So far we have not, and I'm knocking on wood, but.
Well, the other place doesn't. The sewer does not exist anymore.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, you are
karma.
You are in the clear, my friend. Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Do you get people calling it de la Soif or Soif? What is Soif?
I don't know. We get Ducks Punks. Ducks.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, whatever. Just buy their wine. You can call us whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, now you have Katy Perry with her non-alcoholic DeSoy. So DeSoy.
There you go. And then someone
is she DeSoy? God, Teresa bought some of that here in the house. I haven't had it. It's not great.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I love Katy Perry, but it's not good.
A French friend said that, punks in French is kind of sometimes can mean fascist, it's not a term of endearment. It means kind of like you're kind of a fascist jerk.
Well, that kind of goes against the punk.
I know,
because you're anarchists.
I know
anarchists.
Yeah. So
yeah.
No exports to France.
All right. Fair. Speaking of French, let's talk a little bit about the rosé. And, ironically, this too is a sparkling wine, even though it was not intended to be. I had some
It's only
issues.
a sparkling wine for some people.
That is true. And some of you, I do not know if you have, when you got your shipment, if you noticed any secondary fermentation happening in the bottle or the cork starting to pop out a little bit, but we'll talk about that. But before we do that, I really want to talk about the fact that this is a Pinot Gris rosé. And, most people, when they think Pinot Gris, they think, oh, that's a white wine, Pinot Gris, Pinot Grigio. They don't realize the grape has some color to it. So how did you guys kind of land on Pinot Gris to make a wine?
We have to clarify something.
Go ahead, Allison.
Is there anything else? Is it 100% Pinot Gris?
Yes.
That's why, because otherwise you call it, you call it a vin de Gris. You don't call it a rosé unless it's got something that is a red wine grape.
Yeah. So we've, just to balance out the portfolio, we always felt we need to have a rosé. Love rosé, and kind of fell into Pinot Gris. I had like a Ramato. So I was just like, wow, perfect. And Pinot Gris is pretty affordable, like on the scale of, because it's still produced quite a bit and you can find it, and good producers. And Gris meaning gray.
Yeah.
It actually it's gray. It's kind of this ugly gray grape, but it has these little red spots on it. And there's just enough red in there that left on, the skins for a day, it'll pick up some color. So this has about 1 day of skin contact. So you get the color, but then you get a little of that mouthfeel, that phenolics from that day of contact. And it's just fun, But again, just want to have something pink in the lineup. And so we've made this for about 6 or 7 years. This year, it was different. And we learn something every year.
Patty and David are pointing out that theirs is fizzy, and we will talk about that because we noticed that during the deliveries.
Is it 100% Pinot Gris?
100% Pinot Gris.
So it's not technically a rosé.
It is not, but when you're selling wine, it is. Pink wine is rosé. Yes. So, and we get corrected all the time, but I don't care. Buy it or don't buy it.
That's true. Technically, this could be classified as a white wine.
Yeah. So
no, it's a skin contact wine. It would be a Ramato, or it would be
it is a Ramato. It's Ramato, right? It's this is
incredible color for 1 day of skin.
So, yeah.
And so
Ramato, for those who aren't familiar, is basically a rosé done with a little bit extra. Go ahead, Allison. What is a Ramato?
Ramato is Pinot Gris on skins.
Yes.
It's the Italian name for a Pinot Gris. So it's these gray-skinned grapes. Well, Pinot Gris for Ramato, but if you make a Vin Gris, it is made from grapes that have gray, pinkish skins, but are white grapes.
Yeah. So this is one of the few wines we foot tread. So it comes in and we just tread with our feet. Takes forever, but we do it to break up all the grapes and get the skin and the juice contact. So it's like
don't be disgusted, Patty. They sanitize their feet.
We do.
Yes.
So it's like 16 bins worth. Takes forever. But this year we left 2 bins the whole time, like true Ramato. It's like full 2 week skin contact. So that's probably why it's a little deeper in color.
Mm-hmm.
But then we press it and it ages in neutral oak barrels. So it goes through ML. But what happened this year is when we were getting sort of ready to bottle and everything, we rack everything out of the barrels into tanks and kind of gets rid of all the lees, all the dead yeast on the bottom, because we don't find our filter. So we feel like racking it will clean that up. And we're not zealots by numbers, but we do take a lab here and there. And it had residual sugar. It had like 7 or 8 grams per liter. And said, oh, okay, like let it sit a month, and it didn't move. So someone's like, well, you should sulfur it and that'll kill off the yeast. And we're not big sulfur people. So we're like, let's not. We put a small amount of sulfur in there, more than we normally do. We put like twice what we normally do. And it didn't change anything. It just stuck. It was stuck, and waited another month. So it was fine. It wasn't fermenting. It tasted great. Everything looked good. So we bottled it. kegged it and sent it off to the warehouse. And Kane was selling it like crazy. Fine. And then about a week ago, someone said, hey, cork popped out. Like, and it was, of course, they were storing their wine above their fridge. So we kind of did some investigating, and I brought a case back to my house, and corks were fine because it's stored at proper temperatures, but I left some out on my like back porch, and the cork started to push out a little bit. Yep. And so basically we think around 70 degrees, it starts to re-ferment the sugar. So there is yeast in there, and it started to kind of kombucha itself, and it started to get active.
You can see the ring around the bottle there.
Yeah. And so
this is actually tertiary fermentation because it went through secondary during my deliveries. I put a different cork in, and then that one actually popped today. So this is a third cork that I have not put in the wine.
Was it fermented? You said it wasn't fully dry, and that's why the yeast were able to reactivate, right? I mean, but
there's sugar in that wine. Yeah.
And the sulfur didn't kill the yeast, clearly.
You'd have to really sulfur it heavy or filter it, and we just don't do that. I'm just not ours. But we didn't think this would happen, and so the solution was sell it to accounts that are going to serve it on premise and keep it at the right temperature. That's easy. But then I brought like 2 pallets back to the winery yesterday, and I foiled them. So foils aren't really strong. If you notice, none of our wines have foils on them, but foils aren't really strong. But the tin ones, the ones made in Portugal, have a little bit of strength. So did a little test, left the bottle out in 90-degree weather for 3 hours. The cork started to come out, but it did not shoot out. And on a regular bottle, after about an hour and a half, it shot out. So we're working on what to do
for the summertime.
Yeah, it's fine at the warehouse. It's fine at a restaurant or a wine bar, but we got to realize that people don't, and not everyone has a wine fridge, and it happened to my mom and Kane's dad. So
I think a wine built for global warming.
I think what's really interesting, and I think this is something when you say there's residual sugar in it, there's always, it's not. In a lot of wines, it's not perceptible. This is not, when we say residual sugar, this is not a sweet wine. You can't really taste it. It's more that kind of, you feel it you don't taste it on the palate, you feel it on the palate. It's that kind of like softness to it. Yeah. It's not a strong amount. It just has a little residual sugar, and that adds to the mouthfeel and the flavor.
Yeah. What's really weird is we pour this wine at Raw in Los Angeles, the big natural, and it showed no signs of any carbonation on it. And everyone was like, residual sugar, right? And and then everyone was like, we love it. Like, so
a little bit of sugar doesn't hurt anything.
No.
Most of the Proseccos and the sparkling wines tend to have like 5, 6, 7 grams of sugar in it to enhance the tartness, the acidity of the wine.
So this is one where you just say, well, that's natural winemaking. That's the catch-all phrase that these aren't errors. It's just natural winemaking. So it's my catch-all.
I mean, it's fizzy, not fizzy. It's a fantastic rosé, and the flavors on it are beautiful. It's almost like a pure cherry juice. Like, it's got this great tartness to it. It's really delicious. Yeah.
So I don't know if we're going to talk about labels and stuff, but
let's do it.
My nephew, Peter, did that label. He's severely autistic, and so he's like 26, 27. He's never done art in his life.
That's beautiful.
And and I don't know. So I just like, oh man. And so all the money from this wine actually goes to the school that he goes to. It's called the Morgan Autism Center.
Oh, that's amazing. That's fantastic. Very nice.
So
do you guys put that? Like, I feel like that should be prominently placed on the back label just to let people know, because it's. I know you don't want to promote it, but at the same time, you don't want to seem self-serving. But at the same time, it's so good to let people know.
It all sells though, so I don't need to do that. I should probably do a lot of things, but
you put it on the website.
No, it's not
probably
on the
not.
website either. Yeah.
It's just not.
Right.
Yeah.
Kane, where's
I'm not-
Kane? Kane, if you're listening to this,
Yeah.
Anarchist.
be more businessy. Yeah.
Well, giving money away wouldn't be very businessy, would it?
Well, no, but promoting it is a way to get, you're right. But
Yes.
the rest of the labels, I mean, you guys do
Yeah.
such cool
So-
artwork, and I know even vintage to vintage, you'll change up the artwork
Yeah.
on the different wines. How do you decide who are the artists?
Yeah. So the artists are all friends of ours. We don't tell them anything, except the art has to be square in shape, and that's it. So they always are like, what are the flavor profile? Not going to tell you. Just give us art. We love your art, and we slap it on. So kind of the sort of the early on, Aaron and I being so into music, good music, was that we kind of were trying to run this like a record label where every release had a different cover.
Yeah.
And, we're like the one common besides the punk rock crap, we love like old jazz, like Blue Note records, and, and the art was so great on Blue Note records, and it didn't really have a lot of text on the front. All the text was on the back.
Right.
So that's still the style is, art on front, and, and then the musician wasn't making the art that was on front. It was, someone else, some art, so that's kind of the same idea. So we have a lot of artist friends, and we just change it up and slap their labels on it. And some of them have stuck for a couple of vintages, but we try to mix it up as much as we can.
Nice. Do you have some artists who have even approached you guys about hey, I love your wines?
Yeah, but we're kind of like, yeah, I like your art too, but I don't know you. But Kane does it a little different for the De La Soif. He has a little bit more of a vision of what was going on, and yeah.
Nice. Well, yeah, this is a fantastic rosé, and I think with the corks holding up in the refrigerator, it's beautiful to throw a nice little chill on this. How about a food pairing with this one? What would you throw with this?
Well, now that it's sparkling, I'm kind of rethinking things, but when it was a little sweet, it could handle the spicy.
Mhm.
So like something kind of like maybe chorizo-y, maybe something.
Yeah, I can see that. Or
Paella.
some curries, even like
Curry, some Penang curry.
Yeah, like a green or a massaman curry would be really nice with this, like a shrimp curry, something like that would be great.
Yeah.
I think I get all the cherry and stuff, but I keep picking up a little bit of a cinnamon note to it. I don't know. I really like, kind of fun. Fun little wine.
It's delicious. It's
Thanks.
super easy to drink, and I'm a little bummed that the corks popped, but I know it was a big hit at the the party that some of our club members, where we poured these wines for their community, their little block party. So fantastic.
Nice.
Let's move on to the white, your California white wines. So no designation on this one, and this is a good time to talk a little bit about like how which are there specific regions in California that you're looking to source grapes from? Being natural winemakers, are you sort of cognizant of distances and carbon offsets and those kind of things?
Not dogmatic, but we don't want to drive to Santa Barbara to get something we could get in maybe Sonoma. So no grapes from Napa. We've been in Napa for whatever this is, 17 years. We've no Napa fruit ever. It's just ridiculously expensive and not our thing. Very little from Sonoma. Not that we don't like those. Never bought wine from Mendocino County. But
that's interesting. I would think, given your predilection to do sort of unusual things, I know there's some fun things in Mendocino that are grown.
Yeah, but it's those areas have been really kind of picked over, I would say. So we've kind of landed on, we love San Benito County, which is inland from Monterey.
Yes.
Love. And it's starting to get picked over. Rajpar is kind of moving in there, and
he's buying up all the Mondouse and the
Trousseau. Let him. I say let him. But so this wine is half Chardonnay from San Benito County, from Wheeler Vineyard, owned by the Stiletto family. And the other half is Muscat from Cecchini Vineyard in the town of Knightson, which is near Oakley, which is in Contra Costa County. So This is suburban Bay Area vineyard, but some excellent Muscat there. And so it's just basically a 50-50 blend. You know, as soon as they come in, we let them ferment by themselves because they come in on different times, but then we blend them together for secondary. So it's not a co-ferment, but it's getting close to it. It's got a little bit of color, you know, and we're still scratching our head about that because there was no skin contact on this wine. And but it shows a little bit of color, and it's kind of interesting. And
yeah, I mean, in many ways, I've got one of these glasses is the white, one of these is the De La Soif orange wine, and it's very difficult to tell the difference between.
Yeah, and my guess is a barrel got switched at some point or mislabeled.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so all these wines are pretty low in alcohol. We pick fairly early. We pick on flavor and acidity, but we're not numbers people, meaning that we pick at 3.25 and that's it. You know, it's a little bit of what the flavors are, and go from there. So this Muscat is in our other Petnat, and this Muscat is so floral, and it's not like grandma floral. It's, you know, elderflower. It's kind of a pretty floral to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, Chardonnay has such great structure, especially if you don't clobber it with oak or, you know, those type of things. So
yeah,
I mean, there's a reason I love Chablis, right? Because it's amazing.
Yeah, it's bone dry, it's crisp. So given your, you know, that you started with Pinot Noir, was Chardonnay a grape that you always wanted to work with?
Never. No, it was the rule was no Chardonnay, no Zinfandel.
Oh. So what dragged you into the Chardonnay world? Just a deal like a deal
this
you couldn't refuse?
This vineyard had Falagina, and I went out there, and he's like, "Do you want some Chardonnay?" I'm like, "No Chardonnay." And he's like, "It's pretty amazing." He told me a story about the vineyard. It was planted in the early 70s, and you know, and I was just like, "We'll take a little. Okay, I'll try it." And it was so amazing, and so we don't get the Falagina anymore, and we get except
You're
this
still
year
on the Chardonnay, but not the Falagina.
Actually, this year we're going back. We're going to grab the Falagina.
Nice.
But it's an Italian family, and they're in San Benito. They have Greco de Tufo. They have Greco de Nero. They have they have some really cool. They have Ruquet. They have
all those. Yeah.
All that stuff.
All sorts of stuff.
But get in line for that stuff, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So we love the Chardonnay goes into 3 different wines. So yeah,
that's interesting. So why the decision to, you know, not only blend Muscat into it, which most people hear Muscat, they think Moscato, they think sweet,
yep.
Obviously very aromatic. And then also to go 50-50 with it, like that's, you know, for a lot of people, that's like, whoa, that's a lot of Muscat.
Yeah. So it was more the vineyard. We always, in the white blend, always had grapes from Cecchini Vineyard. We used to get Marsanne Roussanne and a little bit of Malvasia from them. Mm-hmm. And those vineyard got kind of sold, and then someone came in and kind of saved it. And they saved it with the caveat that they get all the Marsanne and Roussanne and the Malvasia. And so, which is, and she's great. So it was Martha Stuman, and so she stepped up and like saved that vineyard because
she was our February.
She's awesome. She's been super cool to us, and she respected that we were some of the first people to buy from that vineyard. So she kind of put us at the head of the pecking order.
What's the vineyard name again?
Cecchini.
Oh yeah.
So Julian Ergelet Brothers Wines owned it, and then he sold it. So
isn't that in Anderson in Mendocino?
Contra Costa. It's right near Oakley. It's suburban area.
Okay.
But so that's why it got sold. It's gonna be housing.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the way of the world. World's dynamic. You know, I don't own these vineyards, so who am I to say what people do with their property? I mean, it's a bummer, but you know, I've realized that yeah, this is a very dynamic world and things change, right? So things change.
Yeah. Is this a blend that you guys are planning to kind of
No,
continue to move forward with, or is this really a one-off?
no, I think we're gonna do we're gonna put the Falagina in it this next year. So it'll be Muscat, Falagina, and Chardonnay, a little less Chardonnay. Yeah, I think that's what it'll be. We like to kind of keep it to 2 vineyards on the blends. So
Okay.
it's kind of what the vineyards have more than the grapes themselves.
Do you have a max for the number of grapes in a particular blend, or
Yeah,
are
you want to hear the orange blend? You might think that there's no limit because the orange blend this 2022 is got like 9 things in it, but from 2 vineyards.
Is it basically is that just a field blend, or are you like fermenting those individually?
Well, let's talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. You got it.
Yeah. So this is just press, direct press, like crush and press. So right away the wine comes in to the grapes come into the winery. We put it in the big press and press out the juice. The juice sits in a tank for about a day to let the kind of the gross solids drop out, and we put it in neutral oak barrels for 6 or 7 months and let it go through malolactic fermentation, and that is it. So that's pretty simple.
Are you guys? I have to ask. Are you guys doing any like heat stabilization or cold stabilization?
None.
Or just
0.
Really kind
The
of
only thing
letting
that
the
gets
proteins exist.
The only thing that gets cold stabilized is the Petnats, because we're trying to slow down the process so that we can time it to get it in bottle, because it grabs momentum, and you got to slow the momentum down because you'll miss the window and then you have dry wine. So, but no, we don't cold stabilize. We don't add. The only thing we put in wine is a little bit of sulfur, and usually right at bottling. And some wines have no sulfur.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't fine or filter. We don't, add enzymes or nutrients or those things we just let it go.
Nice. And yeah, I imagine, San Benito just outside of that North Coast appellation. So you went with the California appellation for this one instead.
Well, it's half Contra Costa, so it's not predominantly one region.
Right.
So yeah, it's Contra Costa and San Benito AVAs, and so yeah. And then also it just kind of
North Coast or North.
Well, I don't
San
think
Benito
San
is
Benito is
Central
part of. Yeah, San Benito is not part of North Coast.
Yeah. So we better talk about. So we're talking about bringing in some wine from Portugal and blending it with some of our wines for just something. And we don't know, wine of the world.
World wine.
Yeah.
World wine.
Northern hemisphere. Northern hemisphere.
Yeah. So we're not sure. Anyway, yeah. So this one's fun, and it kind of changes every year a little bit, but we always feel like we need to make just a standard white blend. It's fun, and people like it. People like the artist Angela from my friend from San Diego. She's super duper talented and awesome.
Well, you put a sexy female tennis player on it, it kind of
multiple people have showed us their tattoos of her art from the labels. Yeah, I'm like, weird.
It looks like Stacy.
No.
A little bit. Just
on the label.
Just a skosh. Nice. How about a food pairing with this one? This is like, to me, this screams like fettuccine Alfredo because of the richness, that like unfiltered kind of fuller mouthfeel. I want something creamy, buttery.
Yeah,
Lobster
I could almost
might be great with this.
I almost think maybe carbonara, maybe, but actually, yeah. But yeah, it definitely has that kind of heavy meal kind of pasta element.
I think the Muscat adds such a nice kind of floral richness on the palate. It's really, I like what it adds to the wine. It's really pretty.
Yeah, but 100% Muscat would be too much.
Right.
Yeah, that would be, and hard to ferment down in a natural wine environment. You'd definitely end up with some RS on that.
Yeah, and that's the Petnat.
Yeah, perfect. All right, let's move on back to the De La Soif, which means, again, from the Soif, simply from the band called Stucky, and from me, myself, and I. So yes, this is your skin contact, and this is arguably the most unusual wine that you guys have. So kind of walk us through this one, how you came to have access to these grapes, came up with this blend. It's just so unique.
Yeah. So Kane wanted to make an orange wine, which is great. And, we started searching around for, different grapes, and we found this vineyard in Tehama County, which is near like Mount Shasta.
Yeah.
So like Redding is in Tehama County. So it's a grower who mostly does sells nursery. He's mostly a nursery, so he sells vines and things.
Mhm.
But he has up there, he's got like a trial vineyard, so he grows like one row of all these things, and the list is crazy. And so we just found, I don't even know where we found him, but called him up. And it was getting late in the year. So we're like, hey, what's available? And he said, 1/4 ton of Malvasia and Assyrtiko and Picpoul and, these things. And we're like, we'll take it. We'll take it. And he said he would drive it down.
Oh, wow.
Like, which was even
Saving
better.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. So all at once we got, so this wine has that Chardonnay as sort of the background, but done on skin for like about 2.5 weeks. So it's true orange Chardonnay. And then the other half is about 25% Picpoul Blanc, about a 15% Assyrtiko, and the remainder is Malvasia.
Yeah.
So kind of a interesting blend, and but worked really well. And then this year he's like, well, I have some other things. And so to that, this for 22, we've added Moscafalero.
Wow.
Okay. He had some Semillon, some Sauv Blanc, and he had, oh gosh, what is it called? The Beurre Blanc.
Beurre Blanc.
Beurre Blanc, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
So he had that. So it was like, but it was such small amounts, it was 500 pounds here. And so, yeah, but they all play well together because, again, it's 2 vineyards is sort of the rule. Like, we're just going to take things from 2 vineyards.
Do you co-ferment together? Or do you?
Yes. It's so all the Tehama stuff comes in on the same day. It all gets crushed and fermented together. And so but then the Chardonnay is like a week or 2 apart. So, but then it goes into the barrels as a blend.
And is it the Chardonnay spends 2 weeks on the skins, but the others don't have any?
No, they're full skin contact. It's all our orange. Yeah.
So how long are you doing skin contact on the other side of the co-ferment?
2 weeks.
Okay.
2 to 2.5 weeks. Yeah.
Nice. And what I like, especially, I mean, I know on the Chardonnay side, I've had some skin contact Chardonnays before, but with the other grapes, have you noticed anything different? Is it adding more color? Is it adding more body? What does that skin contact really add to the wine?
Besides the color, I think it changes the mouthfeel a lot. The weightiness gives the wine a different weighty, which I like. I like that. And orange wines. So what does someone tell me? Orange wine 2023 is rosé 2010.
Yeah.
Like it's starting to explode. So like, in LA, they cannot get enough orange wine. It's crazy.
Yeah. So Patty and David wanted to know, since there's so much sediment in this, is this a bottle that you might actually decant or kind of filter out? Allison says no, just enjoy. But
yeah, I don't. When I see a little sediment wine, I usually just give it a little shake, and unless it's like ridiculous, like you got the end of the tank and it's. But I usually just, if I see something like that, I just pour slowly and leave a little at the bottom.
I mean, when I pour this in, if I get little pieces, I'm having it. If I got down to the bottom and have that, I don't want to eat that, the yeast at the very end. But a little bit is nothing. It's the chunky parts that,
Yeah, and usually the chunky part's way more, and they settle out, right? So
it's the opposite of chunky soup, is what you're saying.
yeah.
Just think that's all where, you get texture and you get body, and it's all a part of the whole finished product.
Yeah. It's been fascinating to me because it feels like since rosé, we've had this kind of every, I don't know if it's like a 3 to 5 year period. It feels like there's been a new style of wine that's sort of been the new hot next style. So it was orange wine for a period, then it was Petnats for a period, then it was carbonics for a period. I feel like we're entering the amphora period, where it's now going to be people using amphora for wines, but there's always wineries trying to get ahead of the curve and do
the curve of these old methods that have been around for centuries, if not millennia.
it's the people in the 90s who brought back the bell bottoms and the hippie styles, or Doc Martens or whatnot. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's the 20-year nostalgia rule, and suddenly nostalgia becomes the leading trend.
Yeah. So it's fun to see people discover that. We probably would not do. I'm not going to say we won't do amphora, but that's just really expensive. Like, I mean, we buy neutral oak barrels for like $25. Like new oak barrels are like $1,400.
Yeah.
Amphoras are like 14,000. So we're just not. And with our luck, we drive the forklift and break it. So we're just not.
But you do get a lot more use. I mean, in theory, you get a lot more use out of the amphora. It's not like the barrel where after 5 or 6 years, it might start to leak and needs to be patched and whatnot. With an amphora, generally, the theory is you can pretty much go with that for the next 20, 30 years and still make money.
Right. You're right. But it's just that price tag.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. So what other, are there any other styles that you're interested in experimenting with? And
we've been playing a lot with what's called flotation method. It's a sort of a kind of been reading about it. Some people are doing it in France. It's a way of doing carbonic without having to use CO2, which was really appealing because again, like you need a special tank, you need to pump in CO2 or use dry ice. And so all you're doing in carbonic is making wine without oxygen, right? It's intercellular. So if you have liquid, you don't have oxygen. So just float liquid on top of the grapes and put something on top to seal it. So we figure out how to do that. So we're doing flotation method carbonic. And
do you have to weight the grapes down to keep, because obviously
we just stand on it the whole no, that we found a screen. I was buying something from we buy a lot of used equipment. I was at a winery and I saw these racks, these filters, and I said, do those fit on T-bins, 3/4 T-bins? And they're like, yeah, it holds the grapes down to increase the skin contact. And then I was like, we could use those for carbonic. So we bought a bunch, and actually I did buy them. I helped them do bottling for a day in exchange for them. So things like that.
I'm fascinated by this. Like, how do you keep, I assume you're using water, like distilled water.
No.
What liquid are in top?
Fresh pressed juice. So this year we took Carignan and laid it out in the bins, whole cluster. And then we fresh pressed Barbera and put the direct press Barbera juice on top of it. And then just put the screen on it, weighed it down, and then just did pump overs to keep it from going VA. And so that's the method.
Interesting.
We just learned about people in France doing it. And so
are you, and you're fine with the pump overs? Because I know that kind of goes against the natural and raw.
Does it? I think a lot of people do.
It doesn't. I always thought any type of machinery being used, like like
they don't seem to be as offended by certain machinery as they are by any additives like sulfur or other things.
Yeah. And they being the crazy people. So,
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's like
It-
the vegan
it's-
community or any of those, you know, there's
yes.
always
Is honey vegan? Oh,
No,
Yeah.
because they're abusing the bees.
yeah. We have a very strong theory about oysters, mussels, and clams in our household, whether those are
vegan.
actual vegan organisms or not. That we don't want to get into that because I know there's some other
Yep.
people on this
Well,
call who might disagree with that.
You're
But we
just
love them, and we
sexual nervous system, so one could
Yeah.
argue.
So yeah, there's no rules. There's no natural wine is whatever you want it to be. And we've literally had people say that they're making natural wine and they're inoculating yeast or something,
Mm.
So I think it's a kind of a good catch-all saying that I think for us, we're trying to make wine circa 1700, as close as we can.
Yeah.
So
well,
not
then
a
you
lot
have
of,
to do no bottles and just all casks.
there you go. Yeah.
I hear from a lot of winemakers, and I think this goes to the point of your rosé. I've heard from winemakers who focus on indigenous yeast that say it's really, you have to add some commercial at the end if you really want to finish out your fermentation with a lot of grapes. And well, no, I know you say no, and I know there are a lot that don't, but the rosé is a good example. It just didn't finish, and
But in
done to finish it, and you choose not to, which is
but I would say like in 17 years that one wine didn't finish. And I guess, if it was going to happen next year, I'd probably warm it up a little bit. And then we'd probably do screw cap bottle, it's
That's
probably
good. Yeah,
probably
that's a good
what we
idea.
do. So,
Nice.
but-
So what I find most interesting about this wine is that, at least from a sort of mouthfeel standpoint, it does not have the acidity that the Chardonnay and Muscat does. This one seems to be
Yeah.
a little rounder and richer. It's not as tart and sharp, which is interesting, given those three grapes, especially Picpoul, and even Assyrtiko, which tend to be very high acid grapes.
Yeah. So you're absolutely correct. And the fruit that comes from Tehama County has low acidity. And I don't know if it's the volcanic soil or how they're growing, but it's, for lack of a better word, it's on the flabby side. It has higher pH, has low TA total. So yeah, it's on the flabby side. And so the Chardonnay really helps bring it back. So, but when you get that, you also get some other flavor characteristics, so it's kind of, they play nice together. And that's not by design. It's just that stuff doesn't ripen flavor wise until the acids start to go down. We thought about it. We went up there and, at 3.3 acid or pH, it just didn't have any flavor yet. Needed some more time. So traditionally what you do is you just add tartaric acid to bump up, but
Yeah, no, there's no reason to. I mean, it's a lovely wine, and given the skin contact, it actually just adds to the body and the mouthfeel of the wine. I think having that slightly lower acidity to it
Right.
really
Yeah.
adds complexity to it.
Again, yeah, we don't live by the numbers. I know a lot, there's a lot of better wine through chemistry, and that's great. That's fine. And we're just not that. So
I think it's kind of nice. A lot of wines that are lacking in acidity do make up. There's a perceived acidity through texture and through tannin. And I think that's where this wine really shines, because it doesn't feel flabby. Like you were saying, I can you get a lot of mouthfeel. It has a lot. It's enjoyable to drink. It's not flat or flabby at all.
right. Exactly.
Yeah, and generally when you talk about flabby wines, you're talking about high alcohol, because it's the alcohol that tends to cut down that acidity. But this is only 11.1%. I mean, this is a lean wine on the alcohol side of things.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you like to eat with this?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's Kane's wine, so I should really have him. So what would Kane eat with this? Gosh.
Fish. See what I did there? See what I did there?
He says, I actually texted him because I knew this was going to come up. And Kane's answer is two. He has two. It's Manchego watermelon mint salad.
Oh, wow. Kane's
And-
fancy.
And then he also says triple cream cheese.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So-
This is going to sound really like, to me, I want fried chicken, but I want to put honey on top of the fried chicken and bite into it with this. I think the richness of the honey matches the mouthfeel, but then the acid of this is going to work so well with the chicken and the honey on this one. It's just,
I think that having the honey on it will pull out the honey notes that are in this wine.
yeah, I can see that. Like Bob's Big Boy used to do their fried chicken dinner and then like bring you the syrup container of honey that you could pour over top of it. And I'm feeling that with this particular wine.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. It's interesting. Is this, I mean, I know this is Kane's baby, but and obviously you guys have one for next year, but are you probably going to stick with kind of
Yes.
an orange skin contact wine moving
We
forward?
are, and it'll probably be a little less Chardonnay
Mhm.
and higher on the Tehama, kind of more obscure, the forgotten grapes.
Yes, that's what we specialize in here.
Yes. So we'll probably, boy, he has some crazy stuff. Maybe I should pick your brain, let you guys pick one of the grapes.
Oh my God.
I'll send you a list.
I'm
And I'll let you
I'm
pick.
in. Yeah.
It's like
Actually, send me his list because
you're gonna
down
go
the road
nuts.
with my sparkling brand, there might be some like we'll take half
Yeah.
a ton of this and that whatever we can get. That'd be
Yeah.
really interesting. So
Yeah.
last question about this before we
Mhm.
jump on to the last wine,
Yeah.
but Tehama County, like how did you guys discover that? It's such a I'm fascinated by it as a wine region. Do are there just not enough vineyards there? Is it a place where, given that we're kind of at capacity for Napa and Sonoma and even places like Lodi and Mendocino, do you
There's a jail.
what was that?
There's a prison there.
Is it really?
Well, I mean, it's Reading, yeah. So there's lots of stuff there, but it feels like, I mean, if there are vineyards, it feels like it could be a natural place, especially as, overall temperatures are getting slightly warmer.
Okay. Can I read you the list just because this is funny?
Yes.
Ready?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to do this. Albareno, Aglianico, Assyrtiko, Autumn Seedless, Barbera, Blanc, Cab Franc, Cab Sauv, Carignan, Chardonnay, Chenin, Colombard, Dolcetto, Durif, Fiano, Gewurz, Chardonnay, Gruner, Langren, Malbec, Malvasia, Merlot, Molinara, Moscofilero, Mourvedre, Muscat, Oatnal, Nebbiolo,
Otonel, yeah.
Nebbiolo, Nero, de Alvala, Petit Verdot, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir, Primitivo, Picpoul Blanc, Riesling, Red Ruby, Sangiovese, Sauvignon Blanc, Selma Pete, Semillon, Syrah, Tannat, Tempranillo, Tinta Amarella, Tiroldigo, Touriga Nacional, Treminet,
Treminet, nice.
yeah, Verdejo, Vermentino, Viognier, and Zinfandel.
And he has a row of each.
Pretty much. Well, some of them he has a lot more of, like some of the Cab Sauv and stuff like that. But
That's a lot of rows.
I shouldn't be admitting this, but I am fully aroused right now just by you reading that list.
I know.
And,
So that
yeah.
this is my kryptonite is like, ooh, want that.
Like, yeah, like Pinot Meunier is the one that I immediately was like.
But
ooh.
Tehama is what is the climate there?
Hot,
Hot.
arid, I think.
So Pinot Noir and Tiroldigo and Primitivo and wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Tannat and Nero d'Avola and Moscofilero, all, yeah.
I guarantee that Pinot is not very good, but
No.
but
And I'm sure the Pinot Meunier is, that's a delicate grape as well, but still,
yeah.
that's one that would be fun to play around with.
So yeah, but that gets us
He
excited
doesn't
too.
throw it. There's
No, Patty and David. There is a Greek grape. Oh, they've gone for the thing called Chino Mavro.
Pinot
Pinot
Noir.
Mavro.
Chino Mavro.
No,
Yes.
Pinot Noir.
Cinomavro. Sorry, Cinomavro. That starts with an X. So
Right.
yes, there are, and I believe there is a Turkish grape called Xerxes as well. XER, named after the famed king of the Ottoman Empire.
Is there an opera about Xerxes?
I think there is. Yeah, I mean he's obviously a famous historical figure, but yeah, Allison's got the Cinomavro.
Cinomavro. It's like a TZ.
Right. It's like Assyrtiko, just one of those unpronounceable grapes.
Exactly.
But
And
What
the
about-
the Greeks wonder why their grapes are not thriving in the US the way Italians are.
I just had this conversation on Sunday with somebody about because I was mentioning the Assyrtiko, and I had a Greek couple who were like, "We want to taste this wine to see if we can pick out the Assyrtiko," and they said they could, and so we were having a conversation about Assyrtiko and all of the grapes, the Chenin Mavro and whatnot that just haven't quite caught on here in the United States.
So the one that I did not know, I have to admit, is Rondinella.
Rondinella is from
Rondinella.
Northern Italy.
Yeah. So the San Benito has some of that planted.
Yeah, that's one of the big three of the Corvina wines and the Amarones as well.
Yeah, they have like San Gratino and Corvina, Frappato.
Yeah,
Frisia is a good one, right?
Oh, Frisia's a
Frisia's
great one.
awesome one, right?
Corvino, Corvinone, and Rondinella are Valpolicella and Amarone.
Oh, okay.
Valpolicella, yeah. Nobody in California grows my favorite, which is Scaipatino. So
We'll find it.
Yeah.
If I find it, should we buy it?
I'm in.
Okay, okay.
I'll go halvesies with you. We'll make it. We'll call it Kern's Delight or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Last but not least, the forbidden grape, the one you said you would never, ever, ever make.
Yes.
Zinfandel, Old Vine Zinfandel.
Yeah.
This is
Old.
80 to 100-year-old vines.
Well, yes and no. So the people who planted the Cecchini vineyard also helped manage this Del Barba vineyard in Oakley. This is like 2 miles away.
Mhm.
This vineyard, he's like, you got to see this vineyard. And I'm like, yeah, we're good. He's like, it's got Zinfandel. And I'm like, don't like Zinfandel, not going to go. And he's like, no, just come with me, see it. And it is beach sand vineyard, like
Wow.
beach sand, and head trained fruit, planted by a Portuguese family in the 1880s. It's a field blend of Zinfandel, Mourvedre, and Carignan. But they replanted the Zinfandel in the 1960s. There was some issue.
Mhm.
So it's only 50-year-old vines on the Zin.
It's still pretty good
Right.
for Zen. I mean,
So
yeah.
it's head trained. So what happens is the sand gets hotter than the outside temperature. Sand gets like 130, 140. So the vines can't grow on the ground. So as soon as they hit the ground, they stop growing. So they don't prune. It's dry out there. They don't sulfur. The vines go down like 40 to 50 feet, so they don't water. So it's like a zero maintenance vineyard, except they go in and they pick. And so the Zinfandel not being as popular because the Carignan and the Mourvedre are truly like 100 and whatever that is.
Oh, those are the
But-
old.
So
vines.
those command a high price, but we get the Zin, and a lot of people use that Zinfandel too. But we just tried it. We got like 2 tons and loved it,
Mhm.
and now we make this Zinfandel. So this Zinfandel is meant to be juicier, lighter expression of it's not supposed to be a inky extracted new oak type of thing. This is supposed to be kind of just a barbecue porch type hangout Zinfandel. So it's whole berry. So we destem the grapes when they come in, but we try not to crush up the berries themselves because we want them to kind of not go carbonic, but just we don't want all the skin contact. We don't want it to be really dark and inky. So try to keep it on the light side. And this has about a quarter of it is carbonic maceration with that flotation method.
Mhm.
So it's got, but it's not, we're not going the whole, we're going like 2 days carbonic. So it just picks up a little bit of carbonic elements. And it also kind of keeps it on the lighter side. So kind of a fun play on Zinfandel, and just meant to be, again, we don't make a really big red wine. So never say never, but we might one day. And yeah. So
all of your wines, I mean, even the skin contact wines tend to be on the lighter side, very acid driven. And this is no exception to that. I mean, this is like at the party on Sunday when it was, quite hot, 90 degrees, we put a chill on this and people loved it. And most didn't think they were drinking Zinfandel because it doesn't have those kind of raisiny, jammy, like nearing chocolate toffee notes to it.
So my argument is it does taste like Zinfandel, and the rest of the things don't. Maybe is the rebuttal to that. It's just meant to be kind of so my mom still to this day puts an ice cube in red wine, and it's that kind of wine. I wanted a chillable red. So she didn't have to put an ice cube in it, but she still does, which is actually pretty smart because she said it keeps your wine cold, but it also hydrates you while you drink.
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, and I'm guilty. I put ice cube in wine sometimes in the summer. I mean, it never gets warm in our.
We might have last night,
Yeah.
And it may have been your white blend because I did not throw it in the refrigerator at the right time. And
yeah. So yeah, I'm a fan of, like chillable reds, and it's a thing. We keg a lot of wine, and a lot of people, like a lot of places, warmer climates, pour it on tap, cold, with some chill on it.
I think there's a huge, I mean, especially recently, I think people have sort of been discovering the lighter chilled red. It kind of goes hand in hand with the carbonic movement, if you will, even the move towards rosés. But I think people are realizing that, especially in warmer climates, like here in California, Southern California, especially, having a nice red wine that you can pair with, your burgers on the grill, your steaks, your pork, heavier pork dishes or whatnot. It's a real treat.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking spicy barbecue, maybe for your guy down there, maybe it's a little Santa Maria tri-tip.
Yeah, exactly. Santa with a little bit of salsa would be perfect.
And the Piquito beans, or whatever they're called, the special Santa Maria beans.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be phenomenal with this, I think. Or like even a Cubana sandwich.
Ooh,
Cubana would be fantastic with this because the saltiness of the pork and the sweetness and the acidity. I think
my tummy talk.
Oh,
that sounds really good.
I'm a taken man, Allison. You can't say things like that. Patty and David said that they chilled this wine. It's been at room temperature, 70 degrees since 6:30, but the chill is held. So definitely great. And then Stacy wanted to know why you use, clear glass bottles instead of the traditional flint green or antique green for your wines. He likes to get deep on these things.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question.
No, the clear bottles are actually more expensive. It's not.
Yeah,
the flint bottles are generally cheaper than the clear bottles.
Yeah. So flint is pretty affordable, and kind of again wanting people not to think it's super serious, because when you get this Zinfandel, if it's in a dead leaf green or antique green bottle, a dark bottle, you poured it and you're like, man, it's really light. I thought I was getting a Zinfandel. Right. And so I think this helps you see the color. It's purpley, right? It's very purpley wine, and it looks kind of punchy, and it tastes kind of punchy. And so I think it helps on that. We did a Barbera this year that we're going to actually put into a darker bottle, and the price a little bit. But so all the wines are really meant to be like by the glass wines, so that's our biggest market is restaurants and wine bars that pour this stuff by the glass, and it doesn't break the bank. That's kind of the idea. These are the wines that I would buy if I was at a restaurant or a wine shop, or that's my price range. It's my kind of interest. So if it all goes to crap, I've got 1,000 cases of wine that I actually want to drink. It's kind of the,
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to do that, but
You're set for the next like 5-6 years.
Yep. I'm going to have a fun party.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
yeah, so that was the thought on the flint glass, is that we didn't want people to be surprised. Well, I mean, on rosé, it makes sense. So you can see it's rosé, and then on orange wine as well. Right. So people want to know it's an orange wine, because we don't call it amber wine or whatever on the label. And just kind of don't want to hide these things.
I mean, even the Petnat, because so many sparklings are done in an antique green or whatnot,
or with a cork and things. So again, because we're trying to sell this stuff fairly cheap, most of the wine, like the rosé, I think retails around like 22, 23, and the Petnats and everything else is 26, 27-ish sort of. So we're trying not to get too pricey.
Yeah. And then I have to ask about the shape of the bottles, because you've got, Burgundy higher shoulders, Rhone lower shoulders. You've got, Bordeaux, full on high shoulders. You've got Hock bottle. Like you're all over the board when it comes to the bottle shapes.
Yeah. So Kane wanted to do claret, the Bordeaux style bottles for De La Soif. That would kind of differentiate it, except for the Petnat, because you have to kind of use the champagne style bottles.
Yeah.
And then I always did Burgundy for Deux Punx. And then I kind of like the idea of a Hock bottle, like the soft. I love Alsatian wines. Not that this is Alsatian in any, but kind of just thought, that could give it a different feel. And then we ran out of Burgundy bottles, and we started putting the Zin in Bordeaux bottles.
Or it's more of a, I mean, this is really a Rhone bottle though. Like this is.
Oh, no,
this is
not that.
shoulders.
No. So the
new one. You're doing that in Bordeaux bottle.
Yeah. So about halfway through that bottling, we ran out of glass. And we put maybe 30 cases in claret, and it looks really good. So then this year we're moving over to claret. It just, so there's not a lot of thought, but some, I don't know.
Nice. Stacy wants to know, where are you distributed in restaurants? Is it mainly in the Bay Area or down in Southern California, Central Coast?
Yeah. So LA heavy, because that's where the people live. More people live in Southern California. This is what I'll say. I think people in LA are bigger on, I think they have more California pride than Northern California, and not in a bad way. And I think maybe because the Bay Area has become very transient with technology, so people come here for a couple of years, and if they're from Europe, they drink European wines, and if they're from India, they don't drink wine, and so there's very few native Californians. I think native Californians tend to be a little bit more proud of our wines, but in LA you get more of that. You get more native Californians, and
which is ironic, because I tend to think of LA as a more, I guess it's more transient. It's more transplant people, but they tend to stay in LA longer. And I always feel like once you hit that 10-year mark, you're an Angelino, basically.
Right. So when most people, it's when they don't pick up your pilot, you go home to Nebraska. But
right. Yes.
It seems like Southern California people are just a little bit more, proud's not the right word, but just a little more into California, which I like. I mean, I'm from I'm native to the Bay Area. So
the Bay Area is basically Southern Oregon. Let's admit it.
Well, if you look at a map, San Jose is the middle of the state,
Right.
You just got to go up to Humboldt and Del Norte County to see how much more land there is.
You mean the state of Jefferson up there?
Yeah. Murder Mountain.
Exactly. Yes. The Green Triangle, all those fun areas. Yeah.
The one of the Humboldt vineyards is literally like 2 miles away from from Murder Mountain and all that area. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So most of our wine ends up by the glass at restaurants, wine bars, not small wine shops, small hand where you walk in and then, I'm
Hand
looking
sell type of places.
hand sell, almost none direct to customer. We just don't push that, Kane owns a distribution company, Merchants of Thirst. He's an importer, but he also sells the Deux Punx and De La Soif wines, which makes my life easy. And he's really, he's got like 8 or 9 people working for him. He's getting like containers coming in from France and Spain. His parent, the parent company for Merchants of Thirst is Hidalgo Imports, which is a huge sherry. He sells so much sherry. It's in like to bars, a lot of sherry cocktails. Like
that's impressive because sherry is,
sherry is the bomb. Sherry is like what I recommend to everybody. Sherry is amazing.
It feels like it's one of those things that has kind of skipped a generation. Like Gen X was not a big sherry. Outside of Fraser and Niles, you did not hear sherry be mentioned outside of Rudy Valley songs too often.
Right. So sherry is, So anyway, so that's kind of his thing. But so we do get into smaller wine shops. We just haven't pushed to be in Bevmo or K&L Wines or the bigger wine,
Total Wine and
Total Wine more. No, because first of all, we don't make enough, and then they don't care about us. Like you do sell wine at a small wine shop, they're actually nice to you.
It's true.
So and then we're distributed in like 3 or 4 other states: Washington, the Chicago area, New York. So Oklahoma, and then we export a little bit of wine, which is always funny. Panama, Montreal, Quebec.
Well, I could see these wines, especially that Zinfandel, going very well with like a smoked meat sandwich.
Yeah. So but New York's tough, right? Because you're really competing against European wine. It's probably cheaper to get wine to New York from France than it is from California.
Well, the entire East Coast, that's the problem, is you've got the cheap imports coming in from Spain, Italy, France. The Languedoc wines come in, so they're getting theirs at like $3 to $4,
Oh yeah,
FOB, whatever.
And that's what Kane brings in a lot of French wine, and it's very affordable. They have more wine than they can sell. They overproduce, right? So and they're not going to slow down. So
interesting. Well, even though you don't go, you're not pushing your direct to consumer. If people did want to buy additional bottles from you, what is the best way for them to do that? How can they get in touch with you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'll put it in the chat, but it's just dan@deuxpunx.com. We do have a website. It's in progress, but there is a kind of a store up there. But the big thing is we're trying to start a wine club, like a real wine club. And it's either going to be 3 bottles, 6 bottles, or 12 bottles twice a year. So if you get 3, you're pretty much going to get all our releases. If you get 6, you're going to get 2 of probably the releases, and and then you get special bottles and shirts and stickers and gobbledygook.
Everybody loves free stuff and perks. So the more free stuff and perks you can offer, the better.
Yeah, we don't have a tasting room, but people are always welcome to come to the winery. It is nothing interesting. It is an industrial building with a bunch of tanks. Most days it's not the cleanest place in the. It's we got some organizational problems. I'm admittedly unorganized. I am, but the one thing I'm dogmatic about is like cleanliness of the wines. So that's like that's how we're able not to use sulfur and things like that, is keep the wines clean. But
well, yeah, especially on the natural winemaking side, that's kind of the. Most people think natural winemaking, it's just, laissez-faire, we let everything happen. But no, you actually have to be exceptionally clean, even cleaner than a regular winery, because you don't have the luxury of adding sulfur or these additives or whatever it might be too.
Yeah.
alter
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, but people, so just Dan at Deux Punx, I'll type it in. I'm gonna type my message. Dan.
Yeah, you can throw it in the chat, and then
But-
when we send the replay out tomorrow, we'll include your email so that people want to get in touch with you.
Yeah,
they
but my favorite thing to tell people is just ask their local wine shop to carry our wines, because but in the Central Coast, the biggest supporter has been in Santa Barbara is Satellite.
Oh yes, love Satellite.
Yeah, me too. So they and then just,
Well, most of the folks here are Southern California,
Yeah, so-
Riverside, LA, Orange County area.
Abby,
Yeah.
I'm going to inform you that this is not your first natural wine experience. We have brought on a lot of wineries who are in that natural, undefined vein of a wine of this very low to minimal intervention, low sulfites. You might have the most extreme of those right now, but I mean,
Yeah.
we've had two shepherds, we've had Martha Stuman, we've had Soul Miner.
oh, love the Soul Miner wines.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of these guys who are in the same mindset that Dan has, but Dan might be just a little more on the extreme of it.
He's just
Yep.
lazier.
Yeah. So you want to know who I'm big fans of
Yeah,
wines?
please.
So
Not Raj Par.
I'm not a hater. The guy's awesome. He's made a career out of this.
I had lunch with him the other day. He spoke at an industry lunch, and his whole thing about regenerative, he really
Wait a second. You had lunch with him, or like you were in the same room where he had
that
lunch?
he was at.
Okay, all right. That's the big
Yeah.
difference there.
Well,
Yeah,
no, I mean, it's a small group of industry people that get together once a quarter for lunch, and we get different people to come speak. So Abe Schoner was there. He comes to our lunches, but Raj was very cool talking about regenerative. He seems to have lost a little bit of the Somm arrogance, and he also admits that now that he's found his happy place living on a farm doing regenerative farming and doesn't have to be in the market, I think he's a happier person.
So I have a funny Raj story. Is he started finding out about San Benito, and he wanted to buy Chardonnay from that Soleto vineyard. And so he probably sent someone to do the invest, but like he liked it. So he said, I'm going to come see the vineyard. Want to take some photos. And so he told them, please clean your vineyard so it'll look good in the photos.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, to me, a vineyard is the most beautiful place that doesn't need cleaning, but he's got like a marketing department and stuff. And, good for him. I think that's awesome. But the wines I'm digging, I've always loved is La Clarine Farms. Like La Clarine Farms. They've been making natural wine forever. They're up in the Sierra foothills. Hank Beckmeyer. So his wines, some people think they can lean towards mousy. I've never picked that up, and I hate mousy wines. I really like Ambeth Estates out of Templeton. Those wines are killer. Those are the wines I love.
Have you had them recently?
Yes.
Okay.
I was at Nat Diego this last weekend and tasted through them. I love Frenchtown Farms. It's an old commune that they took over. It was for a while. It was Clos Cerrone or whatever that guy's name is. Gideon.
Guillaume from Clos Salin.
Yeah. So they've kind of taken over a lot of that, and it's called Frenchtown Farms. I think those are really exciting wines. Martha's wines are amazing. So if I'm anywhere in the US and I go wine shop and I see those, I'll buy them. I love the fact that I can go to Montana and get her wines.
Frenchtown is in Shenandoah Valley, right? Is that
no? They're in Yuba Gap.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought there was.
Yeah.
I'm next. Well, we'll talk about this in a second, but next month we're having our first Sierra Foothills winery, and I have to go up there, pick up the wines. I'm staying overnight, so I'm looking at a couple of places to taste at. And I thought there was a Frenchtown Farms, but there might be French something else there.
Yeah. So La Clarine is in Somerset. But
yes, I just sent Allison. I looked up their website.
Yeah.
Just sent it to Allison so we can coordinate about that.
Hank is awesome.
Really? You like Ambeth wines?
Some of them I do.
Okay.
I like the whites. But they're really into amphora.
Yeah. Gillert's no Philip, but that's just my opinion.
Their wines are too expensive. That's their problem.
That's Paso. Forget it, Jake. It's Paso.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and so again, I'm this like high 20s type of person.
No, and that's
my spot.
That's one of the things we love about you is the fact that none of your wines is over $30. None of your wines are over $28. They're just great value for what you're doing, and it's
I love it. It's the same mentality that Martha has. She's like, I don't want to make wines that I can't afford. I think it's such an honest, inviting way to be. Because
refreshing.
But she's making wine for about half of what it costs us because she's doing more volume. And she controls a little bit more, but
she owns a vineyard now. So
right. Yeah. A lot of people are moving that way. It just, if you ever looked at, I mean, people probably dreamt about owning a vineyard. It's insane how much vineyard land costs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, European wine is so cheap is that you can buy a vineyard for nothing.
Oh, and most of those have been in the family for,
millennia,
generations, if not hundreds of years. So it's just everything has been amortized, already.
Yeah. I don't want this to grow very much bigger. I don't want to own a vineyard. I don't want to, make this my full-time thing. I want to retire. Maybe do it. Maybe make Kane do it.
There you go. Force Kane into it.
Or your son.
Oh,
that's true. Come to the family business, son.
Deux Punx 2.0.
So
go work for J. Laura for 5 years and then come to the family business.
So my funny story for him is like, it's about around 16 or so. It's just like, hey, if you ever I'm assuming he drinks or whatever he does, and you do not ever take any Deux Punx wines. Like if you get caught with those or there's a party,
you don't want the cops picking up the bottle and going,
where did these come from? So I just told him like, do not ever. And he just looked at me and goes, Dad, no one likes natty wine.
Natty light. Yes. Natty wine.
No,
not so much.
No, they're all White Claw kids.
Yeah. That's the next, there you go. Well, you guys can do your own natural hard seltzer and make that happen.
We've been working on canned wine, but we're having some issues with making it all play out. But we're going to do sparkling canned piquette.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but we're just logistics and stuff. But summer's almost over, and by the time we're going to have some Thanksgiving canned piquette. Yeah. I think no one said no one.
Perfect time to pour grandma a glass of
she won't get drunk.
Piquette.
She's not going to get drunk on.
Well, they're not at 6.6% or whatever it is.
Right, exactly. So
awesome. Well, yeah. So Deux Punx, DEUXPUNX.com. Dan at DeuxPunx.com. You can visit the website. You can purchase off of that. It may be a little slow on the uptake, but you can always email Dan and do so. Thank you so much for being here, Dan.
Absolutely a pleasure.
Kill the feed in a second. And if you can stick around, I'm sure some people have some questions if you don't mind.
Fire away.
Before that, I should mention that the new email will be coming out on Tuesday for the August shipment, for the August bundle. Keep an eye out on for that. It is the start of our 4th year. So we have 3 years officially in the book, start of our 4th year. And to kick off our 4th year, we have our first Sierra Foothills winery ever, La Mesa Vineyards up in the Sierra Foothills. Some really interesting stuff. We're doing a Gamay, some fun wines coming out of that. So keep an eye out for that email. But thank you again, Dan. And I will
my pleasure.
Shut off the feed now.
Woo-hoo.
Yes.
All right.